Good afternoon. My name's Andrew. I'm OM's Director of People in Mission, and I'm here with Neil Powell, who is the founding pastor of City Church Birmingham and also the co-founder of Birmingham 2020, and Tim Berry, church planter with OM and a musician as well. Thanks for taking the time to be with us, and just a couple of questions to introduce the whole project. Neil, can you just tell us a little bit about 2020 Birmingham, please?
I'd love to. Thank you, Andrew. So 2020 Birmingham is a collaborative church planting endeavour for Birmingham and the greater Birmingham area. So about 10 years ago, in fact in 2010, I met with a pastor I'd never met with before called Jonathan Bell, a New Frontiers church leader in Birmingham. And we began to discuss whether we could do more together in terms of seeing new churches planted to reach all of the communities within the city of Birmingham. So in 2010, we started a project called 2020 Birmingham, and the goal was to see 20 new churches planted by the year 2020. We didn't know where those planters were going to come from or how they would get planted. And by God's grace, we got to the year 2020 with actually all of those 20 church projects now started and underway. And by God's grace, not one of them has failed. And our heart's desire is to keep recruiting and encouraging church planters and helping and equipping church planters in the whole of the West Midlands area, because there is such a gospel need there. And 2020 Birmingham is, in a sense, going again beyond the year 2020 for the next 10 years to see, could we see a further 30 churches maybe planted?
And Neil, why have you been praying for a church planter in Wolverhampton in particular?
Well, I think we've always had a heart for greater Birmingham. In fact, some of the 20 that have already been established aren't technically within the city of Birmingham. They've been in what's sometimes called the Black Country, just to the west of the city. But I think it was clear and obvious to us that a city the size of Wolverhampton, 250,000 people, with a university, is a place of significant and strategic importance for the West Midlands. And despite knowing and having a number of friends who are church leaders there, their indication was, we need more workers for this harvest field. So we have long thought that Wolverhampton would be a strategic and key opportunity to not just see one church planted, but ideally to see a new church that might be what we call a hub church, that might be able to reach out, build up, and then send out more workers, so that actually there wouldn't just be one new church for Wolverhampton, but who knows, 5, 6, 7 would be planted in that greater area. So I think my heart, as someone who grew up in Birmingham and has lived here most of my life, has always been for that greater West Midlands area. And Wolverhampton seems such an important and strategic centre for the West Midlands that, it was obvious to us that if the right person came along at the right time, that it would be something we'd really want to get behind and see happen.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Neil. Tim, how did God lead you to Wolverhampton?
It's been a couple of years that my wife and I, we've really felt called to church planting. And last July, we came here to the UK to look at several church planting opportunities. And we had looked around. It was one of the last days we were going to have the opportunity to go and visit different places. And I remember we met with Neil in Wolverhampton almost as an afterthought. And he stopped off the train. We met at the train station, a little cafe, and we talked. And that was key for us, because as we talked and he talked about this idea of hub church, and that really kind of summed up a lot of the things that we had been thinking and love about the local church in action, as it were. And so we went away and we went back to the States, to New Jersey, where we lived at the time. And we just couldn't get Wolverhampton out of our heads. Then as we started to walk forward and keep praying, and we felt like the Lord was saying, go move forward with this. And so we moved forward, and there was lots of different things. My wife is Dutch and doesn't have UK nationality. And so there's the October 31st Brexit deadline, and the Lord brought us through that. And then with the current COVID-19 crisis, and we had originally been thinking, we'll go in the spring just after Easter. And actually, if we'd waited, we wouldn't have gotten in. So the Lord has just been guiding the timeline. I can't tell you how many different folks from Wolverhampton who I've met almost randomly and who have said, "Oh, your church planting in Wolverhampton, we're so excited. There is a need, as Neil said. There's for a city of 250,000 people, there's not enough gospel workers there." And so that's just been ongoing confirmation in the sense of the Lord's guiding hand in our life.
Now, Tim, I sense a little passion. What are you really passionate about? What gets you up in the morning? What's pushed you?
I think for me, it's the local church doing what it's meant to do. I love the gathering of the local church and to see the people of God come together and to hear the word preached and to hear them sing and worship. So preaching, teaching, worship, gathering. I love to watch folks go on with the Lord, to grow in faith and to watch them walk that out in their everyday lives. And then also this idea of the hub church, of a church that wants to multiply itself as disciples multiply disciples, and then a church that multiplies churches and leaders and church planters. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, isn't it a bit early to have that kind of a vision for a church? And in a sense, it's what every church should be doing anyway. We've just formulated it into part of our vision and part of the core of the church because we want to make sure we really do it and do it well.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Tim. And please keep following us.